Welcome back to the Act 2 podcast, a podcast for the real-life working screenwriter. I'm Tasha Yu.
And I'm Josh Hallman.
And as a reminder, Act 2 is a network and support group for the everyday working screenwriter. That's you.
What?
This podcast is just one of the things we do. We also have a Patreon. We also have a career mentorship through Coverfly, which you can check out more information on Coverfly. They have a little tab at the top. And we have networking events, and you could also just reach out to us personally, which I think is just a really cool aspect of our podcast, the accessibility to professional screenwriters. So you can DM us with questions, topic suggestions. If we don't cover something that you really want to talk about, no matter how small or big it is, please send them to us at ActTwoWriters@gmail.com, all spelled out, or on our Instagram and Twitter at ActTwoWriters. I am Story Thursday on Instagram and Tasha 3.0 on Twitter and Blue Sky.
Wow. I'm Josh Hallman on Instagram, Joshua Hallman on Twitter. Tasha, you have your podcast voice going this morning.
I do?
Yeah, it's
It's
great.
the morning, so I got the nice deep morning voice.
It was pleasant. It was inviting.
Thanks.
As opposed to what it always is every other time.
Angry and cantankerous.
Welcome back to the Act 2 podcast. So we did a Patreon Q&A recently.
Yes.
Which is great.
It was.
Something came up, and I wrote this down, and I wanted to bring this up before I forgot.
Oh, okay.
So we're still planning to do, in the beginning of the new year, top of the new year, we're going to do something where we submit to different coverage services to find out what the coverage is like. And I feel like this was asked yesterday. I've been asked a few times this before about the Blacklist site. And is it worthwhile to host? You and I both love the Blacklist for different reasons, but it's been a little bit since I think either of us have had a script on the Blacklist. So number one, if anyone has thoughts about their hosting experience on the Blacklist, please let us know, because I think that's the prime area that people ask about for the most part.
Yeah. Was it worthwhile?
Yes.
Was it worth the money?
We're just in a time where it's an interesting time where everyone's just trying to get their stuff out there. And it's like, what's the best way? What's the best avenue? And it's between, there's like Coverfly, the Blacklist, Script Pipeline, all these different areas where people can meet representation or producers or whatever it is. And I'm curious about the Blacklist. We're going to get to the bottom of this coverage stuff. I just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah. At the top of the year, we're going to start submitting stuff, and we'll see what kind of coverage we get back and what feels like the best bang for your buck.
Did we just decide that if you're going to use your real name, or are you going to use a different name?
I think my real name.
Okay.
Is that a bad idea?
No, I mean, just in case it gets eviscerated.
Well, what else is new? Yes. The Patreon Q&A overall is really cool. A lot of people showed up, which is great. And we got a lot of really great questions from people across the spectrum of what is it like to be a showrunner, to craft questions about, I loved some of the craft questions. I joked recently that I'm glad we don't talk about craft that much, but it was actually fun to get into some questions about characters and how do you portray certain things. And it was good times. So that was our last live Q&A for our Patreon users of the year, but we're going to start them back up next year.
Yeah. And I love the craft stuff. I feel like we can geek out about the craft stuff like most writers, but you and I could probably talk about craft for 4 straight hours.
Yeah. Well, it's so nice to know you, Josh. Just talk about these things. I can feel like my husband is so kind. He really, really listens when I start, geeking out about certain writing things, but I can tell he's just letting it flow through him rather than yeah. It's nice to have someone to nerd out with.
Yeah. I know that look of hey, I'm going to talk about this character development here and this, and you're like, yeah, you don't care at all what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's just okay.
Okay.
That's
cool.
great. That's great, Josh. Do you have any this week's in writings, Joshua?
I actually do have one.
Okay.
This Week in Writing.
I had written a script. There was a father, there was a daughter, there was some action. And I'm bringing this up because this has been like the roller coaster of a lifetime, this one script. And months and months and months ago, we were taking this script out. Maybe it was like a year ago. I can't even remember anymore. So there was a producer attached. The producer, my agent, they were a little bit more calculated when trying to take this script out to try to sell it, as opposed to maybe going wide with it and trying to get someone to, try to package it, an actor to come on and attach themselves to the script. This time around, it was a little slower. That's a whole story. That's a story for a different day. And so we were trying to package the script. We're going out to actors. And so there were a few actors who passed. And I said to the producer, I said, hey, what about Ke-Huy Quan from Everything Everywhere All at Once, obviously Short Round, Data. So the producer said, yeah, I think we're kind of like going for a bigger name. I don't really think he's big enough. And we're looking for like a movie star. And I was like, okay. And I again was like, well, I really I pushed him a little bit more. And I was like, I think he could be this character, like this leading character. And it was a two-hander, and we could get this other daughter or this woman involved. And so we're going back and forth on it. And I ended up relenting. And I said, hey, okay, whatever you think. This is your decision right now. And we were going back and forth. I was like, if you're this certain about it, fine, go with God. So the other day, I'm sitting in a movie theater. I usually catch trailers online, and I see a trailer come up for a movie called Love Hurts, starring Ke-Huy Quan. I hope I pronounced his name properly. And it is an action film.
Yeah.
It is a two-hander action film.
Yeah.
87 North is the production company. It's being distributed by Universal, which, by the way, Tasha, was the exact bullseye in which we were also going out to. That would have been a very similar kind of situation. Yeah.
Did you send that trailer to them?
No, I did not send the trailer. Not yet, because I was like, and I remember reading about this, but I didn't know it was, I just got, you read something at deadline, then it kind of comes and goes. Sure. And I'm just bringing this up because a lot of times you have to be your own advocate, and sometimes you have a feeling, and sometimes, you just get pushed down. And again, I sort of regret not going a little harder on it and being like, let's just see, let's see what will happen. And, so I'm going to send it to him, see what happens.
You should, absolutely.
Hey, man, remember when you said no about this guy?
There's something about him that makes what could be just a B action movie feel suddenly a little bit more unique.
Yeah.
Because you don't have like a Chris Evans in there who's just like basic white dude doing the thing that you've seen him do in other movies. It's like, oh, like there's an interesting personality in here, and that he's not Chris Evans, Captain America. So like the action might be really unique, and his personality might be very different than I've seen before in a movie like this. That suddenly piques my interest. So yeah, but that's like the tough part about casting, and I'm sure your wife has plenty to say about this. It's like that battle between like how out of the box do you go, and then like how in the lane do you go in order to get people to come in.
Yeah, I get it. I understand, I understand the thought process behind it, but it's also one of those frustrating things. And I think this happens to writers often, where you're like, you have a thought and then you kind of defer to somebody else because they seem as though like they're the people who know everything.
Yes.
You know what I'm going to do, Tasha? I'm just going to send him the trailer
right now.
And I'm going to just keep us an update.
and let us know what he replies. I think we should have your wife on the podcast to talk about a casting director's point of view on writing and building characters.
I've floated this past her,
and she loved the idea.
She's not coming on this podcast. She's not coming on. All right, for whatever it's worth, the trailer with no context has been sent.
Oh shit! There's no caption or anything. Oh boy.
Okay. I sent you a Ben Affleck Instagram link, which I don't think you like as much as I do. And Ben Affleck was talking about the future of AI and how people are feeling about AI. And Ben Affleck, we'll put this in the description, but I thought it was really optimistic. He essentially said people in the entertainment industry, specifically, he was talking about actors, but writers, and he was basically saying that we're going to be the last to really be affected because AI currently can imitate, but it can't create. And although I think AI can create, he is right. There's a human element, I think. And he was really eloquent in saying this, so I'm not even going to try to, repeat what he said. But I loved it. I felt good after watching it.
Yeah.
I don't think you cared, though.
I cared. I guess I just don't like change, like such substantive change so quickly in this business, because he's also talking about how he feels like AI will be used, which is, he had great examples that I think are absolutely true, that I want to change the end of Game of Thrones so that this happens instead of this. And then you can plug that into AI and it will recreate an episode of television for you, personally, the consumer, where the thing happens that you want to happen. And stuff like that will, he hopes, be monetized by the industry the same way that DVDs were monetized and no longer are. Like he's saying, like Marvel could sell a package where you and your friends could AI yourselves into Endgame, and that would be the equivalent of like a DVD sale, which I think is super smart and I think very cool. And especially if the studios are able to control that kind of technology and then repackage it so that it's easy for consumers to use. Like, that's super fun and that's super cool. So like, and then he talks about how the VFX business is going to go away. And I just don't like people losing their jobs. Like it's an age old conversation that has happened since technology and industry have become a thing.
Well, I'll put it in the description. It'll be there.
Anyways.
Yes.
Our main topic. We're talking about work-life balance today. Joshua, you suggested this topic. Why did this come up for you?
It came up because, number one, I've kind of been a little busy, stressed-wise, just stuff, just like life, like everybody's life stuff. Just things are coming up. Maybe it's because we're entering the end of the year and you're starting to make plans and you're planning the rest of your, where are you going to travel to? Are you seeing family? Is family coming in? And all these little things. And I feel like I've been talking to a few people who seemingly were just stressed out of their mind and just kind of like, oh man. And these are all people who are working, some on shows, one's a feature writer, someone, all these different things where people just seem like at this exact moment, everyone was a little frazzled. And not everyone, but you know what I'm saying. And so it came up and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I know we've talked about the work-life balance, but I just thought it would be worthwhile to discuss because I think it's often overlooked. And I think there's some things to talk about when you are a screenwriter, because I think we kind of both have the mentality of just like work until you burn out, which is not sustainable. That was the birth of this topic, me seeing if you wanted to talk about it.
I always love talking about this. Every time I sit down with a therapist for the first time, like, work-life balance is a top priority here.
Yeah.
I sound like I go in and out of therapists all the time, which may or may not be true. I talk about this topic all the time. It's like an ongoing conversation between my husband and I, as just like my workload and his workload morph as, weeks go by, which I think is an important aspect about the work-life balance. It's not just you achieve it and you're done. I do think it is an ongoing conversation with the loved ones in your life who you are trying to balance of, every day or every week is a new hurdle and a new way to manage the work-life balance. So that's why like the conversation aspect feels important. But it's interesting because when you said that, Paul and I had just been having a conversation about this where he met with an editor in the industry who works in film and TV. And the editor was also talking about a lot of the same things we talk about, which is in our industry, there is an expectation that you will work above and beyond the normal 9 to 5 that sort of everyday people in everyday jobs do. And that's all the way from being an assistant when I was at Universal, or when I was an assistant in TV, to a director. You're expected to work at least 12 hours. Like, your day is 12 hours done. And then you may have overtime, and you often have overtime. So the expectation that your day is just 12 hours is already bonkers. And then being asked to work above that is even more bonkers, but again, very common. And so this editor was talking about how he knows other editors who have been on their second marriage, third marriage, can't hold down a relationship, or on the opposite end of the spectrum, people who are like, nope, I want a work-life balance. I'm out at 6 and there's no negotiations there. And it's like, well, that's unrealistic. Sorry, you're fired.
Right.
So I think you and I, because we started talking about this as soon as you mentioned this topic, you and I sort of advocate somewhere in between there, where you're not one extreme where you're a workaholic and you're stressed like the people you just brought up, but you're also not the person who thinks they don't have to work that long.
Yeah.
And you're somewhere in between. And that to me is the work-life balance, which we'll get into.
But it's taken a minute to get there, right? Like, I feel, correct me if I'm wrong, but for myself at least, I used to be like, work, just writing and getting stuff done is really all that matters. Not all that matters. It was like 85% to 15%. 90%. Where it was like, this is it. This is just my life. I am doing this. I used to not go home for the holidays. I used to, like, it was like a form of punishment. I'd be like, I'm going to stay here in Los Angeles and write when no one else is writing, just because it was like a mental thing I had to do. And over time, you get a little older, start making some commitments to people. You birth a child. And by me, I mean someone else's births a child. Yeah, and then that balance you have to just completely reconfigure. Otherwise, you are going to be sad and not happy in your life, I think, and burnt out.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not a sad thing. Like, it's like that loss of the 95% is not a sad thing. It's like, I marvel at how happy I am now.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't work as hard anymore. I think I work harder than I ever have, honestly. But I also have figured out priorities, which is living your best life with people that you love and having joyful moments. Because also being a writer requires you to have a life in order for you to write about it. And it's so important. So, I mean, I guess let's get into sort of tips and tricks we have of the work-life balance. And like, for me, like I said, the work-life balance doesn't mean I get off at 5 every day and then I hang out with my husband. Like, every day is going to look differently. Like, today I have meetings all over town. We have writers group tonight that's going to take us all the way till like 9 p.m. or so. However, there are little breaks in between my day where I can step away from my computer. I don't want to, by the way. Like, I have so much work to do. I could easily sit at my computer every single second of the day in between driving home from my meetings, etc. I could take calls from the car. Like, I could do all of that stuff. I have to actively choose to say, I'm going to take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour
Right.
to go walk my dog with my husband and then come back. And guess what? I have found it so rewarding because you're actually refreshed to get back to work. So it feels like it doesn't help you. It feels like it takes away from things. And by the way, not every day is perfect. I'm not saying that like I manage this every day and it's totally possible for everyone. Yesterday,
That's exactly what you're saying.
Yesterday we woke up and we just kind of like laid in bed for almost like 45 minutes, just kind of chilling. Our dog was in bed with us. We were just kind of like hanging out in bed.
What?
And I was like, I feel like I should get up. And Paul was like, why? I was like, I just feel like I should be doing something. He's like, why? It's like, because I have so much to do. He's like, yeah, but you don't.
Damn.
Like, well, I could have. I certainly could have. But was it really nice to have that morning of just kind of doing nothing? Yeah, absolutely. And then I got to work and I finished all my work. Actually, that's not true. I had to wake up early this morning to finish my work, but that was worth it to spend that time. And I think that's part of the conversation you have to continually have with yourself and the people around you is, what is it worth, right? Like, it is more worth it to go on an hour walk with my husband and then have to like stay late for an hour to work or get up an hour early to work the next day than it is to just work constantly and never see him, right? So like, these are just conversations I have with myself every day to manage my schedule, I guess, and around the things that are actually important.
Yes, I agree with everything you just said. I jotted down a few thoughts of kind of how to like maybe attain some form of a work-life balance, and I think this might...
Love it. I can't wait for this bullet list.
Number 1, the routine. It's all about... I know you have a routine. I in the sense of set writing hours, and I find it at least helpful, even if I don't write. If I say to myself, okay, I'm going to write from... I'm not saying everyone should do this, but sometimes I'll sit at my computer from like 5 to 6:30 in the morning, and I'll try to get some writing done. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I just sit there and do nothing, but it's kind of like that repetition or like that habit of just sitting in or standing in front of a computer and looking at a script and just feeling like you're sort of getting something done. And just for me, at least, you know, like I have to break up my morning a little bit due to my daughter. So I'll leave my computer, I'll come back to my computer. And then that at least is really helpful for me, at least is like kind of setting those hours. And like what you were saying with your schedule, I think scheduling is everything. Like if you can plot out, it's like outlining. Like if you can plot out what your day's looking like, assuming that there's going to be a few curveballs, meeting might run a little longer, whatever the case may be, but just really laying out the day like a maniac. Sometimes I'll lay out my day and I don't even like to tell my wife about it because it sounds I sound like, you know, what's his name? Patrick Bateman from American Psycho, where I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a walk from this time to this time. I'm going to walk in, I'm going to snack, I'm going to drink water, I'm going to sit down, and then we're going to hang out, and then I'm going to walk away. You know, so it sounds psychotic, but I think it's really important.
But it's so true. I also will put in like gym here, walk my dog here, and lunch here. And I sort of put it on my calendar, not on our joint calendar for kind of a similar reason. But like, it's funny. My husband will be like, do you want to do this like curveball thing at this time? I was like, oh, I can't. I only got 5 minutes to do this one thing. So I got to do that instead.
Yeah, it's so crazy. But I feel like it's really important. You have to do that.
Yeah.
Another is just kind of setting your own personal writing goals. Because I think if you don't accomplish things, that whole the work-life balance feels completely unmanageable and you feel like you're getting nothing done. So we've talked about this a million times. We're going to do a goals episode, but like the mini goals throughout the day, whether it be 5 pages, 2 pages, outline, reading.
Yeah. And I think what's great about that too, because if 5 pages is what you need to get done and you do your 5 pages, then you know you've hit your goal. You can relax now. If only for tonight. Tonight you can shut off and go hang out and go see a movie with friends or whatever it is you do because you hit that. And the more that's nebulous, the more you feel like, well, I have to be working. But when you have those goals and you've written them down, you know you've achieved them today, that's when you can start navigating and managing your life so much better.
Yeah. You need to look forward to something. Next. I love how I just wrote some like bullets down.
I love this. I love when you do all the work.
There's not. Mental health, Tasha. And this is a big one. This is physical activity. This is hanging out with friends. This is talking to a therapist. There's a lot under the umbrella, but I think that throughout the day-to-day, assuming, you know, you have a schedule and you're not going out on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday or something, you know what I mean? Like that you just kind of have to have some time to yourself. We talk about taking walks, whether it be working out, whatever it may be. I think that's so freaking important.
Yeah.
Just to kind of go outside.
You're an inspiration about this, by the way. You always are like, go take a walk, go take a 10-minute walk, and you come back and you're refreshed and you're ready to go. And I was like, no, that's not for me. And then I've started doing it. And it's like, ooh, there's something to this witchcraft that you speak of. The walking, even if it's for 10 minutes and then coming back is like, ooh.
Are we going to create the Act 2 walking club?
Oh. We could create a whole host of like 10-minute, 15-minute like writing meditations people can do as they take their breaks.
Just take walks together and talk. The walk and talk is like my all-time favorite thing in the world. And then here's something I thought about. Limiting social media. Gotta do it.
I love that you put this on there. Because post-election, my husband and I have both severely limited our social media. And before this, I was like, there's no time to do anything. There's no time. And I was like, oh, suddenly I have all this time to read.
Yeah.
Or to like watch a TV show. And I had no idea how much time this was taking up for me, or how much it was like delaying my writing to like write and then go on Twitter for a bit and then go back and write. Like if I'm writing more consistently without those little tiny couple minute, 5-minute breaks in between, holy shit, I get things done quicker. And holy shit, if I'm not on the couch scrolling, I can go read. It's great. Plus your mental health is so much better. I am so much happier not seeing this garbage people post. It's fantastic.
Number one, I'm incredibly happy for your mental health.
Thanks.
But selfishly, when I know you're not looking at the reels I'm sending you, it just kind of bums me out a little bit because I'm like, this is so funny. Paul and Tasha need to see this.
I'm still on Instagram. I'm just slower to get to it.
No, I understand. But no, and it's so true too, because, and this is hard, man. Like because social media, I think everyone knows it. It's just hard to admit and like come to these terms. It's like, you'll watch something and then your brain spirals and you're watching the next thing and the next thing. And before you know it, you just wasted like 35 minutes.
Yes.
And I'm the type of person who kind of needs to get into a rhythm of writing. So if you were to send me, if we're writing something, I have to read the script beforehand and then start writing. Like that's just how it's like
Same.
revving a car. So when you start going on social media, you're like sucked away, and then you have to like hit the reset button to do it all over again.
100%. Yeah. I don't know anything about social media, like algorithms and how it all works. I just am a consumer of these things.
Sure.
And so recently, smarter people than I told me that Twitter, but social media in general, is geared to make you angry. It's like literally programmed to be this way. It posts things for you in your feed that will make you respond, because that's how it gets you to, it wants you to engage. And people engage more when they are angry. And so it continues to post things that it thinks will make you angry. Not make you happy, make you angry, because that's when you engage. And then as soon as I was told that there's this sort of surreptitious manipulation behind it to ruin my life, I'm like, oh, well, I don't need to invite willingly this garbage into my life. So now I just follow cooking and pets on Instagram. I got rid of everything else.
Listen, I know this is easier said than done, but I too have made a conscious effort to reduce my social media, and I deleted certain apps from my phone, and it really does. It makes the day goes by a lot better. And I love being the ignorant person when someone asks, like, did you hear about this? I'm like, no, let me read about it. Tell me about it. I didn't get it in real time. I didn't flip out at 2:00 in the afternoon when I was writing my pages. Yeah. I'm good.
Yeah.
This kind of goes into like the mental health aspect, but just finding time to get out and doing shit with your loved one or by yourself, I think is as important as actually writing pages, because you need to see the world. You need to expand your brain, and you need to make time for it. You just have to. That's all.
So I currently work with a few people who, I mean, you know me, I'm a workaholic, right? And it's a problem that I have and I continually work on. I work with people who work even more than me, which I didn't think was possible because I didn't realize there were that many hours in the day, yet somehow they do. And these people have families, so I was like, how does this work? Because I don't have kids, so that makes it a lot easier. And I learned something very valuable from them, which is that when it's time to be with their kids and or a wife, they separate and they do that. They know that then means I will have to maybe stay up till 1 a.m. after the kids go to sleep in order to finish this thing that I have, or wake up early to do the thing that I have. But they don't care. They will make the time for their family. And that to me is so admirable. And honestly makes the work then more manageable. It might sound horrible that I have to wake up at 1 a.m. or whatever to finish my work, but because you've had that sort of refill of your mental health by solely being with them in the time that you have with them, then you're able to, I think your batteries recharge for these kind of like crazy mornings that you may or may not have every now and again. So I sort of repeated something I have, but there's real life examples out there of people who are achieving this. And I just think it's so cool.
Yeah, no, of course. I like, here's the truth is I remember thinking I can't ever get married. I can't ever have kids because then I will never be able to work. And then, you know, you get married and you're like, oh, okay. It's like things are just like better. Like it's fine. You just now have someone else who's going to pick up some of your problems. And then two, with having my daughter, it's the weirdest thing. It stretches your day. Like you just find more time, or you just kind of, wherever your brain was before is now somewhere else. And yeah, you just figure it out. And now it's like, yeah, it's easy. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I don't know how it happened, but it happened. And going back to not to say spending time with someone is a goal accomplishment, but when you do things with someone you love, it feels good. And you're like, I did that. Now I can do the other things rather than just living in this vortex of uncertainty and never accomplishing anything.
Yeah. This is like a therapy session episode, so I'm here for all of this.
Okay. Therapy.
I sort of feel like if you guys out there have specific work-life balance obstacles, we'd love to hear about what they are, because chances are we have faced them as well and have had to deal with it while also doing this crazy job. So I would be curious to hear sort of what you feel like is getting in the way of you having a work-life balance, or concerns you may have about a work-life balance, and we can talk about them, whether it's on our next live Q&A and you hold it for that, or we can talk about them on the podcast, or we could just email you personally if that's something that you'd prefer. But I find this to be extremely important in our line of work, because burnout and negativity is what can make most of us quit this job. So fighting that and staying healthy mentally is very key to the success of a screenwriter.
Yes.
So let us know.
Love it.
Quote of the day.
Quote of the day.
Stop aspiring and start writing. If you're writing, you're a writer. Write like you're clinging to the edge of a cliff, white knuckles on your last breath, and you've got just one last thing to say, like you're a bird flying over us and you can see everything. And please, for God's sake, tell us something that will save us from ourselves. Alan Watts.
Wow.
Please remember to rate and subscribe. Follow us at ActTwoWriters for more awesome writing stuff. You can follow me, Tasha, at Story Thursday on Instagram, or on Twitter and Blue Sky, Tasha 3.0.
I'm Joshua Hallman on Twitter, Josh Hallman on Instagram.
And as always, the Act Two podcast is a production of Act Two, a network and support group for the everyday working screenwriter. This episode is edited by Paul Lundquist.